we continue to follow this controversy regarding the Bowe Bergdahl prisoner swap. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle now expressing their outrage and their very real concern that this action, 1 for 5, will inspire other terrorists to try to target more Americans. Not to mention the frustration over the fact that they were not informed of this release. Earlier this week, we've been following the story with my old congressional colleague, the former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Pete Hoekstra. Pete is back with us. We're also joined by Middle East and terrorism expert, Dr. Walid Phares. Gentlemen, to you both, we thank you for your time and we welcome you to America's Forum. Let me begin with my old congressional colleague, Pete Hoekstra. Mounting backlash over accusations that Bergdahl is a deserter. This being the case, and certainly from his platoon mates, it sounds like a very strong possibility. When he is back in our hands, as he is now, what can intelligence expect to gain from Bowe Bergdahl now that he's been reunited with the American military?
I expect that we're going to get very, very little intelligence from Bowe. I don't think he was in a position to get a lot of information. If he did desert 5 years ago, and there are allegations, very disturbing allegations, that he may have actually given the Taliban the information that would have enabled them to improve their targeting of American soldiers. But somewhere along through that process, he may have become disillusioned. So I think that he never earned the trust of the Taliban, the Haqqani network. I doubt that he's got much of intelligence value to the U.S. at all.
Do you think that he would just come home, Pete, and just flat out lie through his teeth to our intelligence officials?
I doubt it. And I think we've probably got enough information or whatever that whatever we were looking for him from, we would be able to discern fairly quickly whether he was giving us valid, truthful information or whether he was being deceitful.
Dr. Phares, now the former CIA director and Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta has questioned the Bergdahl swap, and he has said, in quotes, "I don't fault the administration for wanting to get him back, but I do question whether the conditions are in place to make sure these terrorists don't go back to battle." I mean, this is a major concern.
It's a major strategic, I'd say even historic concern, regardless of the state of mind of the sergeant. Regardless of what's going to happen when he comes back, that has nothing to do with it. This is a very tactical situation. We have just released back to the Taliban network, even though for a few months or 1 year in Qatar, 4 or 5 major leaders. I mean, these leaders, according to Arab sources, are part of what they call the kitchen cabinet of Mullah Omar. Imagine in World War II, for example, we would be releasing 5 Nazi generals for 1 soldier. Does not make sense in terms of strategy. We could have had another ability to exchange the prisoner with 100 Taliban foot soldiers. There are plenty of those. But I think that the administration wanted to speak with the Taliban, wanted to respond to one of the conditions the Taliban have imposed months ago through Qatar, that is the release of this team of leaders in exchange of dialogue over the future of Afghanistan.
Dr. Phares, you mentioned the kitchen cabinet. Pete Hoekstra, we're going to come back to you with another facet of this story, and we're going to tread some ground we've trod before, and that is the notion of these 5, as Walid refers to them, the kitchen cabinet for the Taliban, now free in Qatar. And we talked about the freedom of movement that they're going to have in Qatar, but again, I think a lot of Americans are concerned about, can you track these people? And we've seen a curious paradox with our current commander-in-chief, Mr. Obama, using drones in the Middle East. In fact, we remember the case of Anwar al-Awlaki, targeting him with a drone, taking him out. Any chance that we are going to use our drones to track, as Walid puts it, the Taliban kitchen cabinet?
I think it's going to be very hard from a technology standpoint to track these individuals in Qatar. They're going to probably be in a large city. The only way that you're going to realistically track them is to have, human trackers following them 24/7. Is that going to happen in Qatar? No. They'll probably be required to report in once a week to law enforcement officials in Qatar. if they wanted to leave Qatar and go back to the Pak-Afghan region, it's going to be very, very easy for them to do that over the next 12 months. Or if they want to entertain and host the Taliban leadership and have a leadership conference, they may just have it in Qatar. They're going to be fully accessible to the war cabinet of the Taliban. And the point that I think is being missed so frequently here, JD, is, a week from Sunday, a week from this coming weekend, there are elections in Afghanistan. We did this, without consulting the Afghan government, just as they are trying to impose, just as they're trying to go through a process of having a free and fair election and having a peaceful transfer of power. The timing couldn't be worse.
Well, Dr. Phares, let me talk to you both about the election in Afghanistan that Pete has just brought up, and also let's talk more about the nature of the government in Qatar, not so much the supervision that Pete likens, as I was hearing him talking about the Taliban checking in almost like a probation situation, but the fact that Qatar has provided a lot of financing in the world of Islamo-terror, at least that is the suspicion. Give us, if you could, your snapshot picture of both what this may mean to the Afghan elections and really what is going on in Qatar right now.
The congressman raised a very important point, and it has to do with our allies, not just the Afghanis. I mean, the Afghani government, the Afghani civil society, those who have resisted the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and the other jihadists are now disoriented. What are we doing? We are releasing 5 generals. Yes, they will be in Qatar, and of course, as the congressman said, through teleconference, actually through meeting with other leaders, they could comfortably, from Qatar, direct the battlefield. But the issue here is about Qatar. We are not listening to our allies, the Saudis, the UAE, Kuwait, of course, Jordan, and of course now Egypt have been telling us that Qatar, the Qatar regime, has been supportive not just of the Muslim Brotherhood, but also of jihadi militias across the region in Syria, in Libya, and of course they have strategic relations with the Taliban. If we don't listen to a majority of our closest allies who have been fighting with us, the terrorists, we're not going to understand what the plan or what the interest of Qatar is. Qatar is now building the post-American influence inside Afghanistan. It's going to be something very similar to the Morsi regime if they are successful at the end of the day. And those they have liberated from Guantanamo, most likely, and that's my projection, will become members of the next cabinet if we withdraw and the Taliban will come back and win the game. That's the big picture.
Pete, can I ask you, what about the reports that the White House considered a cash ransom for Bergdahl last year? I think the question on everyone's mind is, does the timing of this have to do with an attempt here, obviously, to put an end to Gitmo?
I think there's a whole bunch of things. Hopefully someone said, hey, let's consider all the alternatives. Hey, can we do a cash ransom? And hopefully the folks at the White House, immediately discarded that suggestion and said, that's a terrible idea. We don't really know the background. But I think, again, you're bringing up another good point. Remember, this president said from day one, I want to close Gitmo. Harry Reid says, I'm glad we're rid of these 5 Taliban folks. Well, I'll tell you, I reviewed a lot of the files on the individuals who are in Gitmo. These 5 should still be there, the 104. These are dangerous people, and I think the president's trying, number one, congratulations on trying to keep a campaign promise, but it's a bad campaign promise of closing Gitmo. These people, as long as we are still at war with the Taliban, with Al-Qaeda, in that region of the world, these folks will continue to be very, very dangerous. The goal of closing Gitmo is a bad goal. The goal should be to keep American troops safe, and it should be to do everything we can to help this Afghan government that's going to be elected in 10 days make a peaceful transition and stay in power, not enable and empower their enemies.
In the time we have left, let me turn again to Dr. Phares. Colonel Ralph Peters in the National Review, an editorial about the Bergdahl backlash. He writes that President Obama and Susan Rice think the crime of desertion is like skipping class. And he addresses Dr. Rice's claim that Bergdahl served with, quote, honor and distinction. Ralph Peters writes, quote, I actually believe that Ms. Rice was kind of sincere in her oblivious way. When you see this charge, Walid Phares, we've got about 30 seconds. Can you encapsulate the state of American diplomacy under President Obama and this kind of Sunday statement from Dr. Rice yet again?
Unfortunately, this was not the first statement with regard to these issues by Dr. Rice. We had Benghazi before. Now we're having the Taliban of Guantanamo release. I think our foreign policy is very badly advised. It is now disoriented, and unfortunately, national security of the United States, not just of ours, but of our allies, may pay the price. I hope not, but all the signs I see and possible release of another jihadist in the next few weeks.
And we'll have to keep our eye on that. We'll leave it there. Walid Phares, Pete Hoekstra, we thank you for your time. There's more straight ahead on America's Forum.